Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have two special guests with us today, Akaisha and Billy Kaderli. Both are located in Mexico. They're the founders of retireearlylifestyle.com. So we're going to talk about retirement today. We're going to talk about investments and I guess living the life on autopilot when it comes to getting cash and just enjoying the fruits of your labor. This podcast is brought to you by podpair.com. If you want to start or scale your own podcast, go to podpair.com. Glad to have you both, the kaderlis, on the pods. Please introduce yourself and tell me a bit more about what you're up to nowadays, both of you.
My name is Billy Caterly, and like Charles said, that we started retireearlylifestyle.com back in mid 2005 when we wrote our first book. We needed a way to sell it, and so that was the purpose of the website. And it's just grown organically since then. Um, we retired in 1991 at the age of 38. So we were retired 16 years or 15 years before we came out with our first book. And that was due to a lot of people asking a lot of the same questions about how we did it and what we did prior and things of that sort. A little bit about my background is I'm a trained French chef, as well as I worked in the financial services industry. I was a branch manager and broker for Dean Winter Rentals out on the West Coast of the United States. And we got to a point in our lives where we weren't spending enough time together. We were getting wrapped up in careers, and so we just had a long talk, and we said, let's take a look at our assets, and we decided that assuming the market's going to continue to grow at the rate that it has historically, we'll be fine. And so in January of 1991, we cut loose and retired early.
Why retire in the first place?
We both love travel. Both Case and I have done extensive travel on our own, and then once we got together, we continued that. And so we had so many places that we wanted to go and see and things to do while we were still able to do them. And so when I was managing other people's money, they were like our age now, and we're now in our 70s, and uh, I would hear their stories about they just came back from Europe or they just came back from these islands or that whatever, and I was look at their portfolio because I knew what they had, and I said, we've got more than they do, so we're going to be fine. So
We wanted to retire so we'd have more freedom to do what we wanted to do. We like to volunteer. We're in our 34th year now of retirement. We don't really call it retirement, we call it financial independence. And, that way we can choose what we want to do, where we want to go, how long we want to stay. And now we own our lives, we own our future. We really enjoy this kind of lifestyle where we are in control of it.
Right. On my side, retiring would be the end of me because I love my work and I'm just hyper passionate about like changing the world. And I believe that starting social startups to change the world is pretty much my destiny. And I feel that, yeah, retirement, I mean, I've done the digital nomad thing. I've traveled around for the past 7 years and I got tired of traveling, ironically, the airports and all of that stress, to pack your bags and so forth. What have been the highs and what have been the lows of traveling on your side?
Well, the highs have been our perspectives have completely broadened. We've met all sorts of people. We really like enjoying the locals or the indigenous people. And since food has always been a big focus, Billy, like he said, was a trained French chef. We used to own a restaurant for a decade. We do kind of a cuisine tour at the same time that we're traveling the world. And so, yeah, the highs are just the perspectives, and we're constantly seeing how other people live their lives. And the lows, of course, like you mentioned, it can be stressful. Especially as we've gotten older, we need more time for rest or we need more comfort in our hotel rooms or something. But this was the life we were meant to live. That's our destiny, is sort of be like global ambassadors for goodness or good perspectives and that kind of thing. And our website, we were meant to do that as well. So we've changed people's lives as well.
And we hope to be an inspiration to other people that want to take off and get financially set first, and then travel the world.
So how does one do that? How much should they make, like on a monthly basis? Is it having 1 million invested and making 10% of that? So that's 100K a year. What's the strategy to get there?
This is very, very simple that people try to complicate too much. First thing you got to do is track your spending. You got to know how much money you're spending per year. And then you can extract out of that any like unrelated charges that to your new lifestyle. Like maybe you're going to get rid of a car, so you will no longer have a car payment, or maybe you're going to sell your house, so you won't have a house payment. Those kind of things. But once you get that nut, once you figure out how much you're spending per year, then you multiply that number by 25. And that way you should be able to pull 4% out of your portfolio, assuming your portfolio is invested into something like the S&P 500, the Standard & Poor's 500 index, and some mix of bonds or not, or cash. But it's pretty much, the 4% rule is pretty much based on a 60-40 portfolio. I think the younger you are, when we first retired and before that, we were running 100% in equities. So I understand the business, and we're still, like right now, we're probably 70% equities now. And so, we're growth oriented.
And what's a 30% that's not in equities?
In cash and in in a bond, US government bonds.
Right, so 1 million invested at 4%, that's 40K a year. That you're getting
Right.
on autopilot. Is it like that every year, or has there been some lows?
Well, the market gyrates, as you probably know, and basically, if the market runs at the rate that it has historically, it's going to run between about 8 or 10% with dividends. And so, let's just use 10% as an easy example. If you got $1 million and you're pulling 40% out, or not 40%, but 40,000 out, that means the rest of that money that's in there, $960,000 is going to grow at 10%. So you're going to make another 96,000 on top of that in your first year, theoretically. And so then your next year, you're going to be able to pull out a little more than 40,000. And so that's the way you're going to keep up with inflation. But one word of caution here: the 4% rule, in our opinion, is just a guideline. We've never set it in stone. There's only been like one time when we even got close to 4% withdrawal rate, and that was in the 2007, 2008 bear market. And so since then, we're not even anywhere close to pulling out that amount. So we're trying to spend more right now because, like I mentioned earlier, we are in our 70s, and so we're starting to see a slowdown a little bit as far as we want more nicer things when we travel and whatnot. So I hope that answers your question about the $1 million.
Right, so first you need to make that $1 million, right? So both of you've saved that $1 million back then. Is that how it happened?
Well, back then in 1991, we went out with 500,000. That's what we had in liquid invested net worth. And so again, it goes back to what you're spending. If you're spending $20,000 a year, then you can do it on 500,000. So it's all based on your spending.
Right, and living in Mexico, what's your spend rate nowadays? Is it around 20 or 30K a year?
Yeah, no more than 30K, and we don't hold back. Yeah, we could do it a lot less if we wanted to.
Right, that's the cool thing about Mexico, yet I've seen prices raise. I mean, it's probably like the inflation since COVID, but Mexico is also becoming pricier. Me, I'm from Canada and my exchange rate has gone down. Pretty sure that the USD too. Have you felt that?
No, most definitely, definitely. When the exchange rate's gone down and prices have gone up, so it's been a double whammy for everybody living here. But there's still geo arbitrage possible to do here. It's not like it was pre-COVID. 3 years ago, we were getting 24 to the dollar. Now we're getting in this US dollars. Now we're getting 17. That's a big drop. And then you add some inflation onto that, which Mexico does have. It can bite, but it hasn't slowed us down. And our investments have well surpassed that minimal effect that it's had on us.
Right, and what quality of life difference do you see in Mexico, like other than the prices being lower? Why do you like Mexico better than the US, for example, or California in your case?
Well, one of the things we like is there's a lot of fresh food. Our access to medical is very simple. I can walk to most of my doctors, just 5, 7 minute walk from where we live. The people are real friendly. It's if I didn't mention the weather, the weather is fabulous. So, we have 360 days of sun a year pretty much. And it's a lovely culture. So
And I can sum it up in one word: freedom. I think we have a lot more freedom here than we do in the United States. Without getting into politics, I feel like there's a whole lot of intrusion into people's lives up in the United States and Canada as well, as I'm sure you're aware. So here, I mean, if we want to go sit on the beach and drink a beer, there's nobody going to say a word. I mean,
I do agree with that. Yes, Canada's like that too. The police force is always on your back, like giving you speeding tickets and whatever, they're just too much involved in the people's lives. So I do agree with that. And yeah, COVID was quite terrible in Canada and US. Not the disease itself, although it is lethal, that disease, if you don't take care of yourself. But from the point of the government just restraining everyone, put your mask, don't go out, don't see the neighbors, don't even see your family. You know how restrictive that is. It's quite ridiculous. So was glad to spend that time in Mexico. That's actually when I stopped traveling around the world during COVID because every border was closed. Mexico, I could still travel inside Mexico. So do you guys still travel in Mexico or do you still do some world traveling nowadays?
well, we did the same thing during COVID. We traveled all over Mexico, and it was quite nice actually because airplanes were empty and hotels were empty. So we were staying in some very nice hotels at half the price, and so we took advantage of it. AMLO, the president of Mexico, he pretty much backed off of this thing, and he said, "I'm letting the governors take care of it." And so there was no national type of restrictions on anyone. Um, so as far as travel goes, we just came back last year. We did 2 trips to Europe and one in the spring and one in the fall, and intermix that with travel within Mexico. We go to the beach about every 6 weeks here down to beaches north of Puerto Vallarta. And Acacia makes a trip up to the States every year. And now we're planning an Asia trip coming up in the spring of this year. So yeah, we mix both. I've got a list of about 5 or 6 places in Mexico that I'd like to go visit. And so I'm sure you've heard of them, not the towns, but Pueblo Magicos. You understand that term? And so
Yeah.
these are all Pueblo Magicos up in the Veracruz Mountains and around Pueblo and things of that sort. So
Yeah, Mexico is magical. There's so many nice places. Merida is underrated for people that have not been there. Yeah, I've did the full, even Puebla, people are not super aware, but Cholula, for example, um, Valle del Bravo, which I have on my list, haven't been there yet. So yeah, a bunch of places to explore. We did Monterrey recently. That was a very cool spot, very impressive. It's like a city in the mountains, and the mountains they're very spectacular. So yeah, Mexico is quite this precious place and so much to visit in there, so much potential. I think there's one of the greatest migration from Canada and US in terms of digital nomads, quote unquote, in Mexico, and that's underrated. I think there's the greatest migration of people from Canada and US in Mexico, of people that come in and work there digitally because it's very close. Have you guys observed that? Because I feel that's a phenomena that's really underrated. There's no other countries I think that is taking as much young people in the tech sector than Mexico because its proximity. What have you felt that or have you seen that?
Yeah, I think where you're at, Oaxaca is a nomad's meeting place, a meeting area. We spent a lot of time in Oaxaca on numerous trips. Um, so yeah, we've been seeing it. Plus, the fiber optics now seems to be everywhere, and so as that came, so the nomads. So yeah, it's easy around here. Plus, I'm sure you're familiar with Telcel, the cell phone company, and their signal's great all over. So yeah, it's easy.
A concern with Mexico most of the time, and I feel that it's mostly media, but it's like the narco war and so forth. What have you observed and felt on that level?
It's here, but if you don't think it's in, how can I say it's also in the United States. The same narco cartels that are down here are up there, and so it's you stay out of their business, they stay out of yours,
It's
basically.
just very similar to like Sicily. I mean, there's the mafia. They're infiltrated in everything, whether it's government or business or transportation or farming or whatever. It's the same here. So, like Billy said, if you stay out of their business, they'll stay out of yours. It's only if you try to mess around and then you get caught.
Right, and I feel safer in Mexico than in many places in the world, notably the United States and Canada. Because, like you said, narco don't have much interest in me, but let's say that I walk in an impoverished neighborhood in the US or in Canada, people are gonna want to jack me up, they want to steal my shit. And but in Mexico, I've never felt that. I felt that quite quickly in other places in the world as well, like Morocco. My assistant got literally her phone stolen from her hands in a week's time, and we felt unsafe every time we would go out. So, yeah, there's also that. On your side, both of you, what are your goals for this year? What do you want to accomplish?
Well, we've got two more trips planned. One more back to the Caribbean islands that we want to see, and also another one to Asia. We're going to go to Japan, Thailand, and Vietnam once again. So those are pretty broad because we stay about 70 some days each trip.
And Acacia's leaving for the States soon,
I'll be visiting my family.
and then I may be coming up there in a couple weeks, so take care of just some business we got going on up there. So we have seriously, Charles, at our age, like I said, we're both going to be 72 this year. I'm not trying to harp on our age, but we've come up with a new slogan, and that is we just try to make it to Friday. And so, we're on Monday
We're doing
now.
good.
We're doing good, a couple more days and we'll be on the down slope. So we just try to get to Friday each week.
Well, we try to have fun every day. That's for sure. And traveling is one of it. We enjoy our website. We enjoy instructing other people how to become financially independent. We've both got hobbies. We've got a social life that's fabulous.
Right.
And so making it to Friday every week's a good thing.
And from Monday to Friday, what do you work on?
Oh, just our website, or if I'm like I like to cook, and so during our travels we learn how I try to mimic different recipes that we've had in restaurants or whatever, and so we're always coming up with ideas using local products.
Yeah, and we invite people over to our house. It's a big deal when they get invited to our house because, we're better than probably most of the restaurants here, and it's kind of a privilege. And then, Billy said like we've got our website, but I'm an artist and I sell my work
Right.
around town. I've got several places that buy it, and we're both we like our peace and quiet. So like the time goes by really fast. It's not just working and slaving.
No.
Yeah, it's social, and we have fabulous food and so on, travel.
Very cool. Well, thanks to you both for coming on today. Where can people find out more about you?
They can go to our website at retireearlylifestyle.com. If they write to us, we will respond. We answer all emails. We have a free newsletter. They can sign up for that easily right off of our website. And so, yeah, so we've
Yeah.
got books,
Our contact information's on the website, so if they want to drop us an email, we respond to everybody.
retireearlylifestyle.com.